The following episode can be viewed on the YouTube channel Bernie or Bust Television.
All right, so I guess I'm ready. So whatever you want to cover, we can cover.
All right. Excellent. So let me just start with our last conversation on Facebook, and you said, once we get to the point where it seems Bernie will have the delegate lead going into the convention, I will absolutely be on the Bernie or Bust page, because at that point, it can only be taken from us at the convention by a superdelegate coup. Right now, my concern is getting us to the point where we have that lead secured, and I'm not sure that Bernie or Bust is the best persuasion strategy at this moment. So my question is, if you agree that we need to persuade older, white, affluent, educated Elizabeth Mayor Pete type of voters.
Do we need to persuade those voters? I mean, hopefully we don't, right? But I think in a Democratic primary, you have to understand, with, closed primaries, right? The parameters within which this debate happens are manipulated, and they're manipulated at an institutional level, right? I mean, it is a Democratic primary, right? And so, I don't want to leave any votes on the table. Now, am I counting on those people coming through for us in big numbers? See, I use the word "those people" all the time. I know you took issue with that. That's just one of my phrases. That's the unwoke side of me using those people.
In college, I couldn't teach in college without being made aware of how that sounds to marginalize people.
Okay.
Those people. But anyway.
So, no, but so I mean, I think it's an unfortunate reality that we are sort of playing in this arena, but that's one of the challenges of sort of running an insurgent campaign in a party that we really don't belong in, right? I mean, we really shouldn't be Democrats. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. I'm switching to the Democratic Party this year because I live in New York, and I have to. And whether Bernie wins the nomination, wins the presidency or not, I'm going to switch back out of it after I vote for him. This is a party I don't belong to. And so, it's unfortunate that we have to sort of try and make some inroads with, again, these people. But yeah, I mean, I think they're not the kind of people who I want to necessarily go out of my way to alienate. In that direct way, right, by threatening to blow the whole thing up if they don't bend to our will. That seems to me like, at the moment, although, we could talk more about what's going on in Iowa now in a moment if you want. But, I'm not sure that a leverage strategy even works on these people, because a lot of these people may be economically better off. They may prefer Trump to Sanders.
I'm glad you said that. If you say that up front, then your argument has more power. If you believe the polling that 70% of them roughly absolutely under no circumstances want Donald Trump, then you have to come at it a different way. And that it really hinges on that. That's the crux, is whether you think they would actually not care if Donald Trump got elected. And that's where it falls down. But it's leverage only works if you have a bogeyman that they really, really don't want.
Sure, and these these affluent white liberals are not a monolith. I mean, there are some whose sensibilities are such that they really do want to beat Trump. There are some whose sort of position in society is such that they would sit out a Trump versus Sanders general. Right. There are some who might go in the voting booth and pull the lever for Trump. I mean, we don't know. But
there are some.
Oh, of course there are.
There are. So, but do you believe the polling that 70% roughly of Democrat-leaning voters, which is how the sampling seems to work most of the time, really prioritize getting rid of Trump over any other issue? I mean, they don't even care. That's not even an issue. So it's more important to them than healthcare. It's more important to them than the economy, to the Green New Deal, any issue at all. The 70% is kind of held steady over the months. It's under 70. It's like 60 something, and it's held steady. That's their big thing. For people who take polls, which is the same white affluent, the people who vote in primaries are not the same people who vote in general elections. It's about half as many people who vote in primaries, and they skew sharply to higher levels of affluence and education and being white. So if you believe that, then you're not right. Then your argument doesn't hold.
Why? Why not?
Because if you say that they could just, then if we alienate them, what are they going to do? My guess is if we alienate them, only the moguls, the people like Bill Maher or somebody who's at the top, somebody who makes $1 million a year or somebody higher, they identify with the pundits. The pundits, absolutely, it's obvious to me that the pundits would rather have Trump than Bernie, and the oligarchs would rather have Trump than Bernie. President Obama would rather have Trump than Bernie, and Hillary Clinton and John Cowan of Third Way and David Brock and
absolutely, those
agents, all those people would rather. So at the very top of the comfortable suburbanites, the very top of the well-educated, affluent wine track, that's Crystal Ball's expression, the wine track voters, at the top of that heap, I agree with you. I'd say that they would rather not have Bernie. They're almost never Sanders. And so if you alienate,
I don't think. Sorry, I wouldn't. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They're already alienated. So that 70% of regular good faith, perhaps, I think that's the word you used. You used something in your last podcast that sounded like well-meaning, I think, or they want to think well of themselves, I think is how you put it. And so those people, if we've got a category that we're kind of talking about together, they would take a certain amount of alienation without getting so pissed that they would, but certainly they wouldn't vote directly for Donald Trump, and they would probably vote blue. A lot of them. I'd say it's a sliver at the top economically who would not vote blue no matter who, if Bernie were to receive. Even if we Bernie bros and Bernie sisters are insufferable, awful, that we just piss them off every day and they just wish we would all go away. Even then, I think they're still going to be hard pressed not to vote for Bernie if it's Bernie versus Trump.
Okay, well, I'm glad you put Bill Maher in that category, because Bill Maher, as far as I'm concerned, is unwatchable at this point, right? I mean, I cannot stand to watch that show. That show is nails on a chalkboard. Yeah. However, and this kind of goes to some of the nuances and maybe some of the very sort of minor differences in where we're coming from. I don't think he'd rather Trump win than Sanders. I think Bill Maher would support Bernie Sanders enthusiastically in a general, right? Yeah. And so, but you have to also, one of the things to know about these, wine track folks is that they really value being right. It is very important to them that in their mind, they are right. It's almost more important that they're right than that they win. I don't know if you listened to the podcast we just put out this morning, but when you hear a Pete Buttigieg voter or a Liz Warren voter talk about how they're so excited to watch Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg get on the debate stage with Donald Trump and just cook his goose on that stage. That's what's motivating that. It's like they want to feel and they crave the sensation that comes with proving intellectual superiority over others, right? And so a lot of these people, that is either consciously or subconsciously more important than winning. And so if you piss off Bill Maher, if you come to Bill Maher and say, listen, if you don't start supporting Bernie Sanders, we are going to sabotage a general election race. What he's going to do is he's going to call us impotent little children, and I don't agree with him. But
he has
part of him. Right, and Sarah Silverman did it at the convention stage 4 years ago. There's a part of these people that just won't budge from the idea that they're right. Right, they hold on to this righteousness of theirs as if it actually means something materially, when of course it doesn't. Right, it's just in their head. And so that's why I'm not sure that a leverage strategy works unless we establish that, listen, we are on track to win this thing. And if you, I don't know, how are you on cursing on your show?
I love cursing on my show.
Okay, good. If you fuck us, we're going to fuck you back. That, I think, is entirely a good strategy. And so I don't know if
it's already being done. We're already getting fucked. Look at Iowa.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. If you want to talk about
time, it's been time ever since the I don't know if you follow my Medium articles, but I published an expose that showed how the Hollywood Talent Agency execs, Michael Kibes, Darnell Strom, are they're execs and former execs for Creative Artists Agency, the biggest agency, and there's money there behind Kamala, behind Corey, and they represent Joe Biden, and behind Elizabeth Warren. They pay Elizabeth Warren. And Kyle Kalinske said on his show that Elizabeth made a deal with Hillary the first time to stay out, and then made a deal with her again to come in to neutralize Bernie. The powers, this is coming out all over the place now. The powers are losing their shit. So they want anybody but Bernie, and Elizabeth clearly, and a lot of people are saying this, Elizabeth clearly is in the race to stop Bernie. That's the reason she's there. We are already getting fucked. So if you make the case that it hasn't just started now, the voter rolls will be purged again, the ballot machines will be hacked again. Everything that happened last time is already going to be happening again this time, and apps that are paid for by Pete Buttigieg, and on and on. It's already happening. So if you're not over the line yet, I don't know what else you're waiting for.
Okay, well, I'm going to make you happy now. All right. Because well, first of all, let me just say there is a difference between Hillary Clinton whispering in Warren's ear and saying, "Hey, why don't you get in the race to siphon off some of the left vote from Bernie Sanders," and funding a vote counting app or cooking numbers, right? I mean, those are on two different levels of fuckery, right? Those are not quite the same thing. And so to the point, I mean, you could say that, look, the Democratic Party, for a million reasons that you and I have both discussed ad nauseum, we don't have to bore the audience with that now, they don't want Bernie, right? And so they're good. I mean, Pete Buttigieg was at a Stop Sanders type meeting in New York a few years back, right? Yes. And I know Pelosi was there, I think Schumer was there, and who knows, what they could have said to him: listen, we know you're the mayor of South Bend. We know, black people are probably not going to support you. But what you can do is raise a ton of corporate money from our bundlers, and you could squash Bernie's momentum in the early states in Iowa and New Hampshire. We can fund you those two states, and if you can kneecap him there, then we'll pat you on the head for the good boy that you are, and maybe you'll be DNC chair somewhere down the road, or we'll fund a Senate run. I mean, we don't know, right? This is all speculation. But what's not speculation is that he was part of this effort to stop Bernie, and now cut to Iowa, where this app that he is entangled with, this vote counting app, right, malfunctions on the night of the race. Then they say we don't have results for however long. They put out partial results that show him. Or let me skip. I passed over something. He declares victory that night with 0% of the vote counted. The next day, the Iowa State Democratic Party releases a cherry-picked portion of the vote that reinforces his claim to victory. He's been on a great media run these last 2 days. Bernie got none of those headlines that his surge is, keeps going, and that, he's one step away. He's on the doorstep of, inevitability with a win in New Hampshire, right? So who knows? This could have been part of a plan. I will say this, though, and I said this on the podcast that I recorded this morning. Maybe you haven't listened to it. That yes, what has happened here in Iowa is over the line, in my opinion. And so, I absolutely at this point will not support any Democratic nominee that's not Bernie. I know that's not quite good enough for you. I know you guys have very strict standards for what Bernie or bust is. And by the way, I just want to clear up one thing, because I know you took me to task somewhat in one of your previous episodes for suggesting that Bernie or busters are sort of a desperate lot that are acting out of desperation. And I did earlier in that episode kind of go as far out of my way as I thought I could to make that distinction. That when I was saying Bernie or bust there, I meant in a context with a sort of casual, Democrat who doesn't really know what your movement is all about. I actually explicitly said that you guys are not functioning out of desperation. You guys have a specific electoral strategy that's based on what you consider an ethical point of view.
Okay, so to clarify that a little bit, you were right. I didn't want to take you to task. You were right that the Bernie or bust movement comes out of real need for change. Like people, you mentioned people who can't afford their insulin. That's one of the best ways to describe the desperation. So you're right about that. But then there are other people like college professors or there are leftists, true leftists who are educated, and they're also in spirit, they're with the Bernie or bust people because they know that it's rigged, and they know that it's a duopoly. We've got two parties that are functioning as one party, so the oligarchy is winning. So you're right that the Bernie or bust crowd has a real need for change, and then other people like you, other people on the left who are pundits who have a voice that can be heard, or Jimmy Dore, or David Dole, or Kyle Kalinske, they sometimes speak out directly against Bernie or bust. Bill Maher does, and
of course.
So they're saying, well, we see the reason, we know it's rigged, but we still won't say that people should say that they're Bernie and bust in solidarity. The leftists, true leftists, they're not just labor rank and file. They're not just blue collar grubby workers. There are true leftists in the educational, in the academic world too. And what they are supposedly, they're not just well-meaning. They are solid. They're in solidarity with workers. It's a coalition of grubby people and not grubby people who get it. Woke, maybe. We get it. We understand that what we really need to do is be organized the way Bernie talks about, being organizer in chief. We need not just truck drivers. We all need to deny our labor. We all need to pile into the streets with signs. We all need to wave our fists in the air and say enough is enough. And if you're willing to do that, and you are, seemingly, you're willing, I think you would be fine with protesting out in the streets, and probably you have already. So if you're that pugilistic, why not say, look, we're not getting fucked again. You already cheated Bernie once, and you're on track to do it again. If you're willing to picket, why not and go out on strike? I've been on a labor strike. Why not then say Bernie is it? And then to clarify what you said about our strict rules, Victor is strict. Victor is stricter. I think my mantra is no corporate sock puppets, no matter who. So if it's somebody else who's not a corporate sock puppet, otherwise, staying home is fine with me if it's a corporate sock puppet and there's no way. I don't care about protest votes. I don't care about, or write-in votes that don't count. Some people get their tail in a knot over that. But what I would say is that do not, under any circumstances, vote for a corporatist, and say so up front. I will never, ever, ever vote for a corporate candidate, a neoliberal, stealthy, cloaked, or otherwise, no matter who. And then that's the answer to vote blue no matter who. It's sort of like party unity my ass.
Right.
It's like saying, it doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter who you put in front of me. And a lot of people think Bernie or busters are petulant. They just won't be reasoned with. We just,
no,
it's not like that. It's like, if you say vote blue no matter who, we say, no, we're not. And that isn't petulant, and that isn't privileged either. And I think you've covered that. I think you've explained that very well. It isn't, you did on the podcast. And I didn't see this morning's because I've been working since 6 this morning, but we don't think that it's like a protest or anything, or it's being petulant or being the children versus the grown-ups in the room. We think it's a reasonable argument to say the opposite of vote blue no matter who, which is no corporate sock puppets no matter who. So I don't see why that pisses people off more than they bring it in on purpose, the Bernie Bros narrative. They've been using that. Hillary's been dropping that like crazy. We don't need that in the dialogue. All we have to say is we're just as reasonable as you are. When you say vote blue no matter who, we're just saying the opposite in just as reasonable and grown up a voice as you're using. And so if you're pissed off and you're going to vote directly for Trump, fine. We're just as pissed off, and we may do the same. We'll be just as pugilistic as you are. So if you're never Bernie, and we're never Trump. And if you screw us, and we'll, just the way you said it, we'll screw you back.
Yeah. So I make some similar points in the recording that Russell and I did this morning. And one of the points that I make in that recording is that, it goes back to the privilege of the wine track crowd, that they can just take solace in feeling that they're right, regardless of what consequences, right, that actually has in the real world, right? That's why they were able to, just think of this. They did everything their way 4 years ago. They ran the election exactly they wanted. They cleared the field for HRC to run, right? They cleared the field so that no other Democrat mounted a serious challenge. Bernie gets in. By the time he figures out he's got a chance, he really doesn't have a chance anymore because he was just kind of running and gunning the whole thing. They make sure that they sort of block his movement at the gates, and they ran the whole thing their way, and they lost to Donald Trump. And the fact that they still can run with the petulant Bernie bro narrative just shows how, just impervious they are to reality and to the consequences, to the actual material consequences of the way they see politics. The way they see politics is that, whatever you say about Pete Buttigieg, whatever you say about Liz Warren or Joe Biden or any of these other candidates, you can criticize them for 10 hours straight, but they are, in their mind, though, and this because of their privilege, they are still 100 times better than Donald Trump, and therefore everyone has a moral responsibility to vote for them. That's just the way they see it.
Do you have a moral responsibility to tell them the truth about the swing voters in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, who, according to the current polling, are just as poised and ready to vote double bite at the apple, vote directly for Donald Trump? Again, are you poised and ready to tell the wine track voters, because they don't know, and nobody's.
Not only am I ready to do that, I do that. I do that very often.
Are we withholding the truth from them? Are we committing the sin of omission because we're afraid of pissing them off?
No. I'm not. I don't withhold that.
Shouldn't they know this?
They should, and I do tell them that. I don't withhold that truth from them. But once again, telling them that truth, right, that there are people in the Rust Belt whose lives have been ruined by NAFTA and globalization and technology and all this stuff, telling them that there are those people out there who are in, like I said in the podcast that you reviewed, they're in a Bernie or bust situation, right? But that's different from saying to them that I will deliberately sabotage your candidate if you nominate that candidate.
Okay, let's not say that then. Just get out the word, because Kyle Kulinski isn't even talking about the Bernie or Trump voters in swing states. David Dole isn't talking about it. We tweet them nonstop. We'd say, why aren't you talking about this? Why aren't you talking about this? We have that megaphone thing. Warning, warning. We feel like we're Paul Revere. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. The British are coming. The British are coming. What are we going to do? We got to get this figured out. Everybody needs to hear this. Nobody's saying it. And so even if you don't want to be pugilistic and piss people off with Bernie or bust because we should know better, and the grown-ups, like you say, that's a condescending kind of an elitism where they want to be right, and they have a white paper for that, and they have all the answers and a plan. But okay,
and they have every major media institution reinforcing their position on that. In other words, CNN tells them that they're right and that the Bernie bros are wrong and that it's our fault if we don't support, a corporatist Democrat in a general, and that it's our fault. Like basically everything that Trump does is our fault because we didn't vote for Hillary, right? And that narrative gets reinforced over and over and over again throughout the corporate media. And don't forget, these wine track people can all afford cable. I mean, it's CNN, it's MSNBC, it's Washington Post, it's New York Times, right?
What about the ones who watch Kyle Kalinske? What about the ones who watch Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty? What about the people who watch Jimmy Dore? What about the people who watch Tim Black? Why can't those outlets tell the wine? There are wine track voters watching those guys, somewhat. They're not all grubby. So why not say on those shows, hey, the swing voters in the 3 states that gave it to Trump last time are ready to do the same thing again if you don't give them Bernie. You all should know about this. Why not say it?
I think they should. But Jimmy Dore is an interesting example because Jimmy Dore had his own show, throughout. I don't know when it started, but TYT really took off during that 2016 primary because they were in for Bernie and Jimmy Dore was on the panel all the time. And he had his own show at that time. But his show took off after Hillary was nominated. The Young Turks decided they had to back Hillary. Jimmy Dore decided he didn't want to do that. He stuck with the Young Turks, but his own show, right, that offshoot show, took off in the summer of 2016 because all the people who were kind of, frankly, really upset with the Young Turks, and I sent an email to the Young Turks on the night of the New York primary, which is where I live, and they gave a great broadcast. They did a great show that night because that was really the nail in Bernie's coffin. I mean, he had to win New York if he was going to get any momentum going down the stretch. And I said, look, I was really moved by this broadcast that you did, but I have to tell you, it's going to be hard for me to watch this show again if you guys back Hillary in the general. And they did. And I really didn't watch them for the rest of that cycle. Jimmy Dore was like, my online, he was like my therapist for that cycle. You know what I mean? I mean, that's where you would go if you were, like me, and maybe you're nodding your head. I don't know if you felt the same way, but like, that was the couch you would go sit on, and you would hear somebody else, someone out there is thinking what I'm thinking and is able to, channel it in this very compelling, emotional, sort of, theatrical way. So, I think, he is probably, like, I don't think many wine track people watch him. I think, Kyle and, some of these other guys do have that sort of audience. But, I do think, in a sense, what they're trying to do, and this is, I sympathize with this somewhat because there are, like, you don't want to be in a situation where, you are incapable of expressing solidarity with immigrants who are being abused at the border because, because you instructed everybody to sabotage the eventual Democratic nominee. I talked to Nick Brana from the Movement for a People's Party.
You're helping in the long run. You're helping the immigrants. You're helping everybody who's poor. You're helping women. You're helping LGBTQ community. You're helping everybody by sabotaging it, because otherwise it's just the lesser evil trap that we've been doing. And this has been going on since before both of us were born.
Yeah, I don't know quite that I agree with that. And one of the reasons for this is because, and this is this is going to drive you crazy, but
I can back it up.
What's that?
I can back it up. There's been 100 years of DNC rigging the process to keep out insurgent populists.
Yeah. No, look.
I can back it up.
All right. So let me just back up and make one point that I was getting at earlier. I interviewed Nick Brana twice from the Movement for a People's Party. Excuse me. And I asked him last time I interviewed him. I said, so you guys obviously want to form this alternative power structure to the Democratic Party. I think that's a great idea. I think it's better than a great idea. I think it's a necessary idea. And I asked him, I said, so what is your stance on this 2020 race, assuming Bernie doesn't make it? And Nick is sort of the opinion that he can't. He's of the opinion that the Democratic, hierarchy simply will not stand for it. They will not allow it to happen. And, Nick is in a great position to make that judgment. I mean, Nick worked for Terry McAuliffe. He worked for John Kerry. He worked for Barack Obama. He was in charge of getting superdelegates to back Bernie Sanders in 2016. I mean, this is a guy who knows what he's talking about when he talks about what the Democratic power structure will and will not stand for.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. No, I disagree. I think that if you are a union guy, you say, we will go out on strike until you crack. And it doesn't matter what we ask for, as long as we all agree on it. And I think Bernie or bust is the answer to somebody that knows so much about what people are capable of getting if they organize. I always no, we can break you eventually.
All right. But let me just make this second.
DNC. I think we can break the DNC.
No, look, I'm all on board with that. All right, and maybe I shouldn't have phrased that exactly that way, because I don't agree that Bernie can't win. But I do agree they're going to do everything they can to stop him. But the second part of what I was asking him is, what do you like? Okay, so you're forming this alternative party. If there are members of this movement for a People's Party that feel, whether they're in a swing state, you obviously do live in a swing state, that they feel like they have to vote for whoever the Democratic nominee is because they just can't allow Trump to put at least one, maybe two, possibly three more justices on the court, which could sabotage all kinds of legislation for decades, right?
Obama didn't do any better.
Okay, but
better. Biden wouldn't do any better.
I think Biden's picks would be better than Trump's in that sense.
A little bit. He can't get a real leftist on there.
He can't get a real leftist on there, but he can put someone on there who's not going to sort of undermine any healthcare legislation that comes down. I mean, you have to understand, like, a 7-2 majority on that court means the judiciary has veto power over basically anything we pass for decades to come.
The lesser evilism trap has captured you, because
I'm trying to make this point.
You got to believe that anything is possible, and if you do, then you believe that the rigging can be unrigged and the hijacking can be even better than FDR did, because FDR was rich assholes. They came, and I got this from Professor Richard Wolff. The rich assholes and FDR sat down and had a little discussion, and he said, "Okay, you can keep your." Half your money, you can keep your power, but we got to have some money to fix shit around here. So they fixed it, and then they came roaring back with a vengeance. We've got to take those motherfuckers out of power. We've got to take them clear out, and nobody you're gonna vote for because we won a few good SCOTUS picks is gonna do it.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you. But what I've been trying to make this point for like 7 minutes now. I'm asking, what do you tell people who feel that way, who feel like they have to do it? Are they welcome in the People's Party or not? And he says, look, yeah, they are. We're not going to take a position on that. We're not going to tell people that you're not welcome in our organization if you feel like you have to vote for a Democrat this time. Just like we're not going to tell you you're not welcome if you are a Bernie or buster. Like, you don't want to fracture your movement that way. And so one of the risks of, like I said, being too Bernie or bust too soon is that you could run into a situation where you alienate certain people whose support, quite frankly, we're going to need. I mean, we have some great people in Congress right now. I mean, you look at AOC, Rashida Tlaib, right? Pramila Jayapal, excuse me, just came out for Bernie. Omar, right? They're going to support the Democratic nominee if it's not Bernie, right? They are not.
What do you really think? Do you really think that the wine track voters, the typical ones, the ones who live in neighborhoods around us, do you think that they are really going to get so pissed off that they're going to vote directly for Trump or stay home if we say, look, because what better time than now? You say, wait,
vote against us in the primary, man. That's the point.
Don't deploy Bernie or bust too soon.
We got to win the primary.
Do it soon because the primaries have already started. We can't wait until the general because then all we can do is give them Trump again. That's not the goal. The goal is to tell them soon enough that they see we're serious, and then they say, oh, they already did it once. They blame us. Whether we actually did it is another thing. But they could say it in their minds. They could say, look, these loose cannons, they already gave us Trump once. What if they're right? What if those swing voters, those Bernie or Trump swing voters, are numerous enough to make it happen? Maybe we just have to say we can't have Biden, we can't have Warren, we can't have Mayor Pete, we can't have Amy Klobuchar, for Christ's sake, we can't have Bloomberg. We got to have Bernie because they're forcing us, and we believe they're not bluffing. And okay, they get pissed, they get alienated, they hate us for it. Okay, but goddamn it, we gotta have this done now. We can't wait, because if we wait, already Super Tuesday will be over, and you'll be saying, okay, now we should tell them that we're Bernie or bust. The whole point of the leverage is to get it to happen before the primaries, so they believe us before the primaries.
Of course. But like I said, it's different to say that there are disaffected voters in the Rust Belt who are Bernie or bust. That's a different thing from, and I'm saying this a second time now, from saying that we are going to sabotage your candidate, right? I mean, it's different. Saying there is a political reality that exists in which certain voters are going to either vote for Bernie in a general, or if Bernie's not an option, they're either going to stay home or vote Trump. That's a totally valid point. I've tried to make that point as often as I can.
Who's the grown-up then? Who's the grown-up then? If they say, you warned us, you got the word out, we knew that you were going to give us Trump again if we didn't pick Bernie, but we just banged on our high chairs. No, we're just not going to do it. We're going to vote Biden. I don't care what you say.
I hear what you're saying, man, but
the same thing again, and they knew better if we tell them, and if Jimmy Dore tells them. And now the Young Turks. You mentioned the Young Turks. Hold
on 1 second. Let me just answer that for 1 second.
What he did, but he did it, and I think that because he's getting $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg and Disney. The Young Turks are funded by the same people. That they're funded by the DNC machinery, the Young Turks. Jimmy Dore will never say that on his show. Now, Jimmy Dore is not funded by the DNC, but he won't call out Cenk. And this is why. This is what I suspect. This is, I've presented this to David Dole. I've presented this to Kyle Kalinske. They don't say a thing. They don't deny that they're being funded by anybody, but they're being funded by somebody. They've got a lot sweeter setup than we do. But what I'm trying to say is, what motivation could, other than just wanting to be a polite person, what motivation could there be for not telling the truth that they're going to get Trump again? Elizabeth, you believe this, I know. Elizabeth Warren can't possibly win.
No way. No.
Pete Buttigieg can't possibly win, not in the southern states especially. No. So Biden in swing states is going to get crushed. And I've heard some of the people say that I've been talking about. They know. They absolutely know that Joe Biden can't win. We all know Joe Biden can't win, but we are afraid or somebody's paying us off not to tell the truth. Only Bernie can beat Trump.
Okay, I think that this is maybe a messaging problem on your guys' end here, because making the electability argument against Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, and Warren is something that I think, guys like Kyle and David and Jimmy Dore do quite often. I mean, we hear them do that quite often.
Yes.
Right, but they are not militantly Bernie or bust in the sense that, look, I interviewed Victor in July. Now you say Victor is stricter. Victor comes out and says, yes, we will sabotage the Democratic nominee in a general election. Not we'll stay home, and not vote for them. Not we will write in somebody, on November 3rd when we go vote, but we will actively undermine the Democratic nominee with the explicit intention of reelecting Donald Trump. That's what he.
Yeah, be careful with that, because that's not quite right. But
well,
you
that's
say
what he told me.
He said that,
listen to the episode. That's exactly what he told me.
Okay, all right. So let that stand. We'll let that stand. The way you characterized it, I'll let that stand. But what I would say is,
characterize it. Just listen to it.
Okay, all right, fine. I won't argue with that. But let's say that sabotage is too strong a word. If all you're talking about is voting green, you know that if you stay home or vote green, it's pretty likely to do the same thing. But the only thing is better is your conscience. Your conscience said, well, at least I didn't vote for a corporate sock puppet, and at least I exercised my right to vote. But if things go the way they did last time, and Jill got less than a 1% or something, it's a protest vote. So let's say that staying home or voting green is not sabotage. It's just voting your conscience. Because if you say we're going to go out and actively sabotage your candidate, that's just what Hillary would say. She would say, oh, well, you hurt me. You hurt me. You didn't come out and endorse me soon enough. No, we went to 37 whatever counties it was, or whatever, 37 stump speeches for you. I shouldn't say we, because I sure as hell wouldn't have done that. But I don't, sabotage is the right way to say it. I think it's voting your conscience. And Bernie or bust can't vote in good conscience for Biden or Warren or Buttigieg. But they don't have to sabotage anything. They just can't vote for somebody that they know is evil. Lesser evil notwithstanding. And so that's not the same way. And the way you put it, I would almost agree with you that maybe we shouldn't be doing it that way. But all we have to do is sound like grown-ups and be firm in our resolve that no matter who, we're not voting for a corporatist at all. Sure. And it doesn't sound quite as bad as the way you said it, or maybe the way Victor said it.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Great. I think that was maybe a point that we were sort of going with two ships passing the night on it. But, I think you said something earlier about how, and you're absolutely right, that yes, at the end of the day, these wine track sort of, pussy hat wearing, mainstream Democrat voters, they're as childish as it gets, right? I mean, they are sort of, just, I mean, the whole thing where you said earlier, where they're going to be the ones, pounding, on their high chairs, if they make the same mistake again, we could very accurately say, look, to put it in terms they might understand, you were warned, you were given an explanation, and nevertheless, you persisted, right? And you did the same thing again, and you lost again. And we could call them children. We could say that. But again, we don't have the sort of institutional support behind our opinions that they have, so they may not believe us. But even if they do believe us, we don't want to be like them in the sense that I don't really take that much pleasure in being right. I want to win, and I want to win the primary, right? And if I have to finesse these people a little bit to get them to consider voting for Bernie in a primary, especially in a caucus state, like I was making phone calls into Iowa, right? And I got a few people who said that their first choice was Buttigieg, and Buttigieg ended up doing well because Biden did so badly. A lot of Biden voters switched to Buttigieg on the second round. But I'm thinking, like, okay, I asked this person, would you consider Bernie on a second choice? Now, if they say yes, my follow-up is not that Pete Buttigieg is, a psychotic, sociopathic, lying piece of shit. Because there goes that vote, right? And I want to win these votes. Now, once we start winning these votes, once we start establishing this momentum, and once it becomes clear that the nomination can only be taken from Bernie through these shady sort of means, like what's going on in Iowa, then we absolutely say, yes, we are Bernie or bust. And I consider myself, like you said, Victor is stricter. And I'm part of the basis of this conversation is the interview that I did with him 5 months ago. He would not be satisfied with me saying that, yeah, I'm not voting for the Democratic nominee unless it's Bernie Sanders. but that is my position right now, and it is my position that was always probably going to be my position. But the fact that this Iowa thing happens, and people can, check out my episode on that. I don't know if you'll put a link or a plug or something. But yes, that is absolutely a line that cannot be crossed. That is, and I said this in that episode, that what they did here is almost as bad as a superdelegate coup at the convention. In fact, in a way, it's worse, because at least a superdelegate coup is out in the open. It's for all to see. Right? They're going to switch the votes in plain sight right before our eyes, as opposed to this bullshit where, the app was broken, so we have to delay the results. And even though Bernie's numbers say that he's winning, we're going to selectively pick precincts that show that Pete Buttigieg is in a narrow lead. Glenn Greenwald retweeted somebody, and, I think he's one of the best journalists on earth, right? I mean, I can't think of a better journalist than him. So, I take his word for these things. But there was somebody who he retweeted that said that the Iowa State Democratic Party has numbers from all 177 precincts in Polk County, which is where Des Moines is, which is going to be the big basket of Bernie votes. They have all those numbers, and they only reported out 95 of those 177 precincts. Why? Because if they reported all of them, they would probably shit all over Buttigieg's narrative that he's winning.
Right.
And so this is rigging, plain and simple.
Yes.
And we're not going to tolerate it. So I am, yes, absolutely 100% Bernie or bust.
Yeah, yes. Okay,
so I'm there.
Good.
But that doesn't mean that when I get a Buttigieg supporter on the phone and I'm canvassing and I'm trying to get them to do what I want them to do, that I'm going to rip them a new asshole. No, that's not the right tactic, in my opinion. But if they push us too far, look, any other shit between now and Super Tuesday, and we're just going to have to basically make this a hostage situation, right? Because
if you show this or broadcast this, our website is BernieOrBust2020.us if they want to sign a pledge. And it isn't that big of a deal. Most of all, they just have to be willing to say it out loud the way you did. I'm not voting for anybody but Bernie, period. Just say it. And you don't have to do it. I think Victor would be happy with what you just said, because he would say, even if he's strict, he would say that you are Bernie or bust if you say that you're not going to vote for a Biden or Buttigieg or Warren. And it's not going to be anyone else. And
well, Victor's a big guy. I want to make him happy for sure. I want him to be happy.
Yeah. That would be fine. Yeah, you don't have to actively sabotage anything as long as you don't vote for one of those three and you say so in advance. Now that's the only problem. If you aren't willing to say it until it's too late, then there's not much point.
Yeah, I said it this morning. I said it again right now. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
So, all right.
Good. All right. That was amazing. Sorry?
Should we end there? Yeah, you want to end there?
That's good. That's all I wanted. And if you want to tell people on your podcast, that's great. And I don't want to piss you off either. I want your goodwill, but I still think earlier is better. And because I think we all should have anticipated the fuckery. I think we all should have seen it coming, and we should have preemptively said Bernie or bust back in July of 2019. We should have said, no. We know, we're not stupid, we're not naive. We know it's coming. We should all say Bernie or bust now. But people have to get pissed first, and then the pledges come in roaring. But they have to see some real honest to goodness fuckery first before they're willing to do it.
Yeah, and I think, Bernie or bust is a proactive alternative to like despair. So many people on Monday night were just so destroyed by the end of the night. They said, there's no point in this. We can't win. There's a great writer who I've had as a guest on my show. I won't say who he is because it's a private text back and forth, but he was giddy with excitement early in the day. He says, is this actually going to happen? I can't believe it. We're actually going to do it. By the end of the night, he was saying, there's just no point to this. Like, I have to check out of this because, who would have seen this coming? Like, he says, they're always 10 steps ahead of us. We're thinking, okay, maybe they'll manipulate the vote in some way, or maybe Bernie will win the popular vote, but not the delegate count, and they'll only report certain things and downplay other things or whatever. nobody saw coming that they're going to say, oops, we don't have any numbers at all. And we don't know when we're going to have them, and so, yeah, I mean, I think, this is, like I said, it's a proactive alternative to just giving in and throwing your hands up. And so I think I think that's the way to go.
Good. Okay. That's a good place. If you're a Tolkien fan, what I would say to back up what you just said is that you don't want to be like Denethor of Gondor and lose your hope. You got to be like Aragorn. You have to go in there. You have to believe that it's possible, even against everything that they're throwing at us, because it looks impossible. Really, the machinery of the oligarchs looks so imposing. But I think we just can't give up. We have to keep hope and fighting, no matter what they do.
Absolutely. And look, the every reaction sparks an equal and opposite reaction. The fact that they're going to these lengths is because we're winning, right? It's because we have momentum. They wouldn't be doing this if we were a bunch of fringe lunatics marching with signs somewhere on the street where nobody could see us, right? They would just ignore us. That's what they've done for decades, right? They haven't had to do this shit as overtly and, as outrageously out in the open as they are now. And the reason they're doing that now is because we are building momentum. And I do want to say one thing. You are nowhere near my bad side ever. In fact, I do want to thank you so much for featuring our writings on this show. I texted Russell when I came upon the episode that you did where you read his whole article, and it made his night. So you guys have been awesome to us. So we're nowhere near on bad terms. We were never that way. But I just thought, it would be a good opportunity to talk this out because I think we have a lot in common, and I also think there were some areas that we needed to sort of clarify.
Right, good. I feel the same. And tell Russell, I think he's a great writer, and you're a great writer. And I like the little fife sounds, the drum sounds at the beginning of your podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely a fan, if not a stan.
All right, well, there we go. All right. I don't know we had any stands, but anyway, you're welcome to our show anytime, obviously.
Great. Yeah, that's a great place to leave it then. And we'll keep in touch, and if we think of anything else to harangue about, together thinking of the same thing, and we can just get our word out. But Victor will really appreciate the public burning your bust admonition, or I think it was an admonition. I think you're urging other people to do it as long as they're not alienating people who might vote for Bernie in the primaries. And I heard what you said.
Right now we got to get votes in the primary.
I agree. I agree with that. And so I think everybody's happy with how it went. I'm picturing the board of revolt against plutocracy and the discussions we have behind the scenes. And I think everybody would be delighted to hear what you just said.
All righty. Well, we'll leave it there. I don't want to get myself in any more trouble.
Good. All right. Me too.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Get on board the Bernie bus train. Come get on board the Bernie bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board the Bernie bus train.
The preceding episode can be viewed on the YouTube channel Bernie or Bust Television.